Flowing down terms, making sure that you're following an order of precedence. Making sure that the agreement takes precedence, then second is the terms and conditions of the prime agreement, then it's state, local, and federal laws. Something along those lines, so that, because often there are things that conflict. Just because we got something from the sponsor in the prime agreement does not mean that the subrecipient automatically gets that. We may choose to restrict something along those lines. If that's the case, making sure you have an order of precedence will save you a lot of headache when they come back and say, well, the prime says we totally have carry forward and we have all these different things. And we go, well, that subaward agreement that we signed with you does not allow you to carry forward those funds. It doesn't allow you to rebudget without prior approval. So just making sure that you make that order very clear. Access to documents for audit, same thing along the record retention requirements. Just because you're retaining your records, you need to make sure that the subrecipient does too, because if you get initiated under an audit from the sponsor, and they want backup documentation from that subrecipient also has to be held to the same requirements and standards to provide you with the backup if the sponsor wants that. Question that we have is, what is the indirect cost rate that a foreign institution can charge? It depends on the sponsor. NIH will cap them at 8%. NSF will cap them at 10%. If an institution does not cap them, then the negotiation takes precedence. So you can negotiate a rate with them, or you can hold them to the 10% de minimis as well. So Alice has asked if the FTP templates don't include the order of precedence, is that being considered to be added in the future iteration of the templates? It is a consideration at this point. One thing the FTP template does do is it allows you to exclude the prime agreement and add in the terms on, I believe, attachment 2, that add in the required UG requirements. So if you do not want to have those terms of the prime agreement in there, it sets you up so you can remove them if they are conflicting. But it is in discussions with the subaward working group whether or not there is going to be an order of precedence included.
And if I can jump in for a minute, going back to the indirect cost, another issue that we sometimes find with subawards is the proprietary rates issue. And so occasionally you'll have a subaward. This usually comes up at a proposal stage where if it's a private company or something, their rates might be considered proprietary and they will not share them with you. Generally, and it's often written into the solicitation for proposal, there's often a way to do this where the subaward can supply those rates directly to the government for evaluation and go through and skip giving them to the pass-through entity entirely, but different institutions may have different ways of handling it when that happens. So that would be something to be aware of also, and check in with your central office on how they prefer to handle that.
Exactly. Yeah, our institution, if it's someone like Lockheed or Boeing where we know they have some sort of federal rate and they want to report it up, fine. If they don't have anything that's negotiated, then they can send it to the sponsor, and we'll confirm with the sponsor that they accept it before we'll execute the agreement. So another question is, can the PTE negotiate an indirect rate lower than 10%? Yes, unless it's NSF. And NSF, we still haven't received clear guidance as to whether they would consider that to be cost share. So the 10% de minimis is just an easy, they don't have to provide any backup. They decide to elect a 10% de minimis, that's fine, applies to everything until at which point they decide to negotiate a rate, and they don't have to provide anything for it. If they want a rate lower than 10%, that's perfectly fine, but again, then you have to go through the negotiation process.